Ladies and gentlemen, you pray for peace, but you grip your plans like your survival depends on them. You say, God, take control, but you still lose sleep trying to fix what only heaven can move. You're not tired because of the fight. You're tired because you're carrying what was never yours to lift. When God is leading you, He does not need your fear, He needs your faith. He doesn't need your backup plan, He needs your surrender. And some of you are standing in the way of your own breakthrough because you're trying to understand what God only asked you to trust. This message is not just a sermon, it is a shift, a divine interruption. A call to stop chasing what was never yours to control and finally step into the peace that only comes when you let go and let God lead. You cannot walk in faith and be controlled by fear. It is not possible to follow the voice of God while holding hands with anxiety. Fear is not just an emotion, it is a spiritual voice. It speaks doubt when God declares promise. It whispers destruction when heaven declares purpose. And every time you give fear your attention, you are feeding the very thing that wants to keep you small. Understand this. Faith and fear cannot occupy the same space. One must silence the other. If you want to hear the voice of destiny, you must first mute the voice of panic. There are people listening to me right now who are not failing because they are lazy, not falling because they lack talent, not stuck because they have no potential. They are simply controlled by fear, paralyzed by the thought of what could go wrong, trapped in the cycle of overthinking every step, chained to the opinions of others, and every time they try to move, fear reminds them of the storm, reminds them of the risk, reminds them of the possibility of failure. But I declare this to you now. Faith does not wait for the storm to pass. Faith walks into the storm knowing that the God who called you will calm the wind when it's time. Fear magnifies the enemy. Faith magnifies God. Fear says, what if I lose? Faith says, what if I rise? Fear looks at the mountain and sees it as impossible. Faith looks at the mountain and sees an opportunity for God to show His power. The problem is not the mountain, it is the mindset. And too many people are praying for elevation while being loyal to a mindset rooted in fear. But God is not moved by fear. God does not respond to panic. God responds to faith, and faith is not a feeling. Faith is a decision to trust God even when you cannot trace His hand, a decision to move forward even when your knees are shaking, a decision to declare, even if I lose everything, I will not lose my belief. We were never called to worship fear. But many do. They give fear their time. They give fear their energy. They make decisions based not on purpose, but on fear of criticism, fear of rejection, fear of failure, and fear becomes their God, their guide, their prison. But hear me well, God will not share space with what is trying to destroy you. If you want the full presence of divine power in your life, you must be willing to let go of the lies that fear planted in your spirit. Lies that said you are not enough, lies that said you are too late, lies that said you don't have what it takes. Every single one of those lies was crafted to keep you out of the season God already prepared for you. The truth is, many of you are standing on the edge of your breakthrough, but you won't jump because fear is whispering failure. You're standing in front of the open door, but you won't walk through because fear is reminding you of what happened last time. And what fear does not tell you is that the last time was not a defeat. It was preparation. It was training. It was refining. You didn't fail. You were forged, and now you are stronger, wiser, and more ready than you've ever been. But to move, you must choose faith. You cannot lead yourself while being led by fear. You cannot build while being broken by doubt. You cannot birth vision while being loyal to limitation. At some point, you must stop giving your fear the final say. At some point, you must look fear in the face and say, you've had your turn, now it's God's. Because until you silence fear, faith will be suffocated. Until you let go of worry, trust cannot breathe. And as long as you remain loyal to fear, you will always live beneath your calling. What you must understand is that fear is loud, but it is not powerful. It is persistent, but it is not permanent. It shows up like a storm, but it passes like a shadow. And if you would just dare to move in faith, if you would just dare to take one step forward, even while afraid, you would see that the fear was only a wall made of paper. that the giant was only standing on lies, that the limits were never set by God, they were accepted by you. God's plan requires your surrender, not your strategy. But the tragedy of this generation is that we've learned how to plan more than we've learned how to trust. We map out our lives with precision. We set timelines, we write 5-year goals, we draft detailed visions of how we expect everything to unfold. And then we collapse in fear and frustration when it doesn't go according to the blueprint we design. But hear me clearly, God is not obligated to bless your plan. He is committed to his purpose, and the moment your plan begins to replace your trust in him, that plan becomes your idol. Many of us want control because it gives us the illusion of safety. We think if we can organize every step, predict every outcome, calculate every risk, then maybe, just maybe, we won't get hurt. But what we don't realize is that God's leadership often begins where your control ends. He will not always give you all the answers up front. He will not show you the full picture. Because if you saw the full picture, you'd try to take his place, and so, in his wisdom, he gives you the next step, not the whole staircase. He gives you the instruction, not the explanation, because obedience is not dependent on understanding, it is dependent on trust. Too many people are stuck not because God is silent, but because they're too busy strategizing to listen. They're trying to figure out how it will work instead of trusting that it will work because God said so. They want a guarantee before they take the risk. They want a blueprint before they take the first step. But faith does not work like that. Faith is walking with your eyes closed but your heart wide open. It is saying, God, even when I don't understand, I'll still go. Even when I feel afraid, I'll still obey. Even when nothing makes sense, I'll trust you because your track record is flawless. What you need in this season is not a new plan, it's a surrendered heart. A heart that says, not my will, but yours. A heart that is more loyal to obedience than to comfort. A heart that is willing to lay down the timeline, lay down the pressure, lay down the illusion of control and say, lead me, Lord. Because when God leads, it may not be logical, but it will be supernatural. It may not be safe, but it will be sacred. And when you follow his voice over your own reasoning, you will always end up in places that strategy could never take you. Some of the greatest moves of God in your life will begin when you throw the plan away. When you stop asking how and start saying yes. When you stop trying to manage God and start surrendering to him. You were not created to carry the burden of figuring it all out. That weight was never yours. And that's why you're tired, not because life is too much, but because you're carrying things that were meant to be laid at his feet. Let me tell you what real power is. Real power is not having the answers. Real power is having the peace to keep walking without them. Real power is looking at the unknown and still taking the first step. Real power is trusting that God is not just ahead of you. He's beside you, behind you, and within you. And when you surrender, truly surrender, you activate that power. You unleash the supernatural. You allow heaven to take command. Some of you have been praying for clarity, but what you need is courage. Some of you have been asking for details, but what God is waiting for is your decision. Because as long as you keep trying to control it, God will not compete with your pride. He doesn't co-lead. He doesn't co-author. He doesn't need your backup plan. He needs your surrender. He needs your yes. He needs you to release what you thought it should look like so he can deliver what it was always meant to be. Letting God lead doesn't mean you abandon wisdom. It means you abandon ego. It means you move with peace instead of panic. It means you allow the Spirit to whisper above the noise of your strategy. It means that every day you wake up, you put your hands up and declare, God, I don't need control. I just need to follow. Because when you follow, you don't have to force anything. When you follow, you don't have to figure everything out. When you follow, you stop striving and start receiving, and that is where peace lives. That is where purpose breathes. That is where breakthrough begins. Peace comes when you release what you cannot control. But the reason many people are living in torment is not because the world around them is chaotic. It's because they're still trying to manage what only God has the authority to handle. You are not God. You were never meant to be. You are not the author of time, not the designer of destiny, not the one who holds the wind in his fist and commands the sun to rise. And yet every day you wake up carrying burdens that were never assigned to your name. You carry the opinions of people who don't even know your heart. You carry fear about a future that hasn't even happened. You carry pressure to solve problems that were never yours to fix, and then you wonder why peace feels far away. Peace does not come from control. Control is the enemy of peace. The more you try to control, the more anxious you become, because control feeds the illusion that you are responsible for everything and everyone. And that illusion is exhausting. It will wear your soul thin. It will drain your joy. It will paralyze your spirit. But when you finally release what you cannot control, when you lift your hands and say, God, this is yours now, that is when peace begins to take root. That is when the noise starts to die down. That is when you realize peace was never the absence of problems. Peace is the presence of trust. There are people listening to me who are praying for peace while holding tightly to what God told them to surrender. You want peace, but you won't release. You want rest, but you won't let go. And as long as your hands are clenched around the outcome, your heart will stay closed to peace. Peace does not visit clenched fists. It comes to open hands. It comes to those who have stopped fighting to control every chapter and have started trusting the author of the story. Some of you are losing sleep over people you can't change. You're worrying about whether they see your value, whether they'll stay, whether they'll support you. But hear me clearly. You are not responsible for other people's loyalty, their growth, or their decisions. That's too heavy for you. You were not created to carry the weight of someone else's choices. You can pray for them, you can love them, but you cannot control them. And the moment you release the need to manage what others think or feel or do, you free your soul to walk in peace. Others are stuck in cycles of anxiety about the future, where you'll go, what door will open, what job you'll have, whether the dream will come to pass. But what if I told you that you don't need all the answers today? What if I told you that you're not supposed to know everything right now? Your peace is not hidden in the outcome. It's hidden in the obedience, and the more you fixate on what hasn't happened, the more you miss what God is doing now. Let go of the obsession with results. Walk in peace with what's in your hands today. Control often disguises itself as responsibility. You think you're just doing your part. You think you're just being wise. But somewhere along the line, you stopped trusting and started panicking. You stopped releasing and started micromanaging God. You started checking your own prayers to see if they were working fast enough. But real trust says, even if it takes longer than I thought, I will rest. Even if I don't see the full picture, I will believe. Even if I feel pressure all around, I will stay in peace because my faith is not in my plan. It is in my provider. And the most powerful thing you can do in this season is stop wrestling with what you cannot control. You are not responsible for the timing. You are not responsible for the outcome. You are responsible for your obedience, for your surrender, for your posture. So breathe, step back, let go, because when you release control, you create space for miracles. You create space for clarity. You create space for God to show you that He never needed your panic. He only needed your trust. Your delay is not a dead end, it's a divine detour. But the reason many people give up too soon is because they misread divine timing. They confuse stillness with absence and silence with rejection. They see delay and immediately assume something is wrong. But I came to tell you, delay does not mean denial. It simply means that something greater is being arranged. Something deeper is being formed in you. Something stronger is being built behind the scenes. Because when God delays a thing, it's never to destroy, it's to develop. And development is never visible to the impatient eye. When you are walking with God, you will not always move at the speed of your desire. You will not always get what you asked for when you expected it. There will be doors that stay closed longer than you like. There will be opportunities that seem to vanish right when you thought they were yours. And it will be tempting to question everything. You will wonder if you missed your moment, if you misheard the voice of God, if you are being punished. But what if the delay was not a punishment, it was protection? What if the delay was not a curse, but a classroom, because in delay God teaches what speed cannot reveal. He teaches trust. He teaches endurance. He teaches that favor is not just about the blessing, it's about the foundation. You want to rise quickly, but he knows that a quick rise without a strong root is a guaranteed collapse, and so he delays, not because you're not called, but because you're being prepared. The calling is real, but the maturity must match. The promise is sure, but the vessel must be ready to carry it. God will not put destiny in hands that have not been refined by patience. He loves you too much to let you arrive unprepared. Some of you are looking at your lives and thinking you're stuck. You think your prayers are being ignored. You think you've been left behind, but you're not stuck. You're stationed. You're not behind. You're being hidden. There is a season where God will keep you in the shadows, not to forget you, but to protect what he's forming. When you're in the spotlight too soon, the pressure can break you. But in the hidden place, he works on your character, your motives, your heart. He removes what can't go with you and installs what you'll need when the door opens. So don't curse the delay, embrace it as divine strategy. The world teaches you that success is fast, but heaven teaches that greatness is forged slowly. You cannot microwave purpose. You cannot rush refinement. You cannot shortcut growth, and if you try to take a shortcut, you will only delay yourself further. That is why people keep going in circles. They keep trying to break into rooms that they have not been called into yet. They keep forcing what should have flowed, but you must learn to discern the difference between your timing and God's. Your impatience could lead you into a door that you're not strong enough to hold. But God's delay ensures you arrive fully prepared, fully whole, fully aware, and here is the truth. When it is your time, nothing and no one can stop it. You won't have to manipulate it, chase it, or beg for it. It will meet you in alignment. It will find you when your hands are faithful and your heart is surrendered. But until that moment comes, be faithful in the delay. Worship while you wait, build while you wait. Heal while you wait, because the delay is not idle time. It is divine time. It is the season where God is shaping you for what you prayed for. He is aligning things you cannot see. He is preparing you for a weight of glory you don't yet understand. And when it finally comes, you will realize the delay was never wasted. It was working. So don't be discouraged. Don't lose your focus. Don't compare your pace to someone else's. Their fast success may look impressive now, but only time will reveal what was truly built on a solid foundation. And you, yes, you are being built to last, built to endure, built for impact. That's why the delay hurts. That's why the silence is heavy. But the pain of waiting cannot compare to the purpose of what's coming. What God has for you will not miss you, and what misses you was never meant for you.